Imagine waking up before dawn in a world where the scorching heat of the sun is just one of the threats to your survival. With every step, the hot desert earth seems to swallow you. The bread you eat tastes of dust, and invisible gods watch your every move, waiting for a mistake that could cost you your soul. Welcome to ancient Egypt, where the grandeur of pyramids and riches don't tell the true story. Here what matters is the daily struggle for a future in the afterlife. Could you survive? As you rise from your rudimentary bed of straw and earth, the first rays of light begin to paint the horizon. The air still has the softness of dawn, but you know that in a few hours the heat will be unbearable. The Nile below, calm and deep, seems almost indifferent to your fate, but it is the true center of life in Egypt. Without it, you would be nothing. Your field of labor, your food, even the water you drink come from it. But it is also unpredictable. The Nile can be generous or ruthless, and it dictates the cycles of life and death throughout the year. You quickly dress in a simple linen skirt, the only fabric your family can afford. The children, still small, run around the house, unconcerned about the heat, but they will soon learn that in Egypt the heat is just one of many hardships they must face. The bread you eat in the morning is hard, made of coarse grains and full of tiny stones that will knock out your teeth before you turn 40. The feeling of exhaustion is already there, weighing down your bones, but you know the work will not wait. The foreman will shout your name at any moment, and if you don't answer, you will be punished. There is no room for weakness, only for strength and endurance. As the first rays of sunlight illuminate the small village streets, you already feel the weight of the day approaching. The houses around you are silent, but not for long. The sound of foremen, tools hitting stone, and the murmur of other workers begin to fill the air. Each has their own task, and yours as always will be a heavy one, carrying stones, raising earthen dams, perhaps even working on the pyramids in the pharaoh's temple. Each day is a struggle to stay alive and keep your family afloat, unsure whether the great Nile flood will come to save or destroy the harvest. But for now, all you can do is keep going. With one last look at your home, you set off for another day of work, your heart heavy, but with the strength of survival as your only ally. The fear of the gods, the need to please them to secure a place in the afterlife hangs over you. But that, you know, is a struggle for another day. The day is already in full swing when you join the other workers, the sound of tools hitting. Stone echoes throughout the village. Today, your task is to carry limestone blocks, a job that demands unparalleled physical exertion. The load is heavy, the heat is stifling, and the ground covered in hot sand seems to melt beneath your feet. But the alternative of not complying is even worse. Anyone who fails, who doesn't resist the imposed pace, will be replaced. Survival here has no room for weakness. You look around and see other men, women, and even children, all facing the same challenge. Every movement is mechanically repeated. Every step is calculated to ensure the job is done on time. No matter how much your body cries out for rest, the sun continues to shine relentlessly, and the Nile watches silently in the background. With each stone block, you feel the weight of Egyptian civilization being lifted, but also the pressure on your own shoulders. In the midst of this, you begin to notice something curious. Although the work is brutal and exhausting, there is a sense of kinship in the air. Each person, with their own dreams and fears, carries the same burden, all hoping that at the end of the day, the reward will come in the form of a thriving harvest, a disease-free life, or even a small compensation. But deep down, you know this hope is fragile. The Nile, the source of life, can also bring destruction with its violent floods. Everything depends on a random chance of nature's unpredictability. As the hours pass and sweat begins to pour down your face, you feel a constant pain in your back, the weight of the stones, the pressure of not failing, and worry about the future. All of this begins to accumulate. The food you ate this morning already seems distant, and the heat is making work even more difficult. The few hours of rest are sometimes not enough to regain the strength you've lost. The hard, tasteless bread becomes a bitter reminder of a simple but necessary life. At midday, when the sun is at its zenith, you seek some shade, but it is minimal, almost non-existent. The work continues without stopping. The women, in parallel tasks, grind grain and prepare what they can for the next meal, But resources are limited, and the scarcity of food and water makes the scenario even more desolate. The grains you grow, the dried fish and the onions are all you can hope for until the next harvest, which again depends on the Nile's behavior. And so the cycle continues. The struggle for survival never ceases. With each task accomplished, the weight of the next challenge looms large. You try to ignore your fatigue because you know that stopping may be the last time you have the strength to continue. In ancient Egypt, life is a constant struggle against heat, hunger, and the invisible threat of the gods, who could decide your fate at any moment. The only certainty is that as long as the Nile flows and the sun shines, the work will never stop. You finally sit down tired and exhausted, and your meal feels more routine than relief. Hard, crumbly bread is the most common food for a worker like you. Made with coarse grains, it even contains small stones that over time steal your teeth. Eating becomes a task of survival, not pleasure. Every bite is a reminder that life here is made of simplicity and constant struggle. The smell of fresh onions mingles with that of dust and sweat. Sometimes you might find a bit of dried fish, but it's rare. In ancient Egypt, meat wasn't something you found on the table every day, and when it did appear, it was a luxury reserved for special occasions. Water, which should be the source of life, isn't always reliable. The Nile, which seems like a trustworthy friend, can bring with it disease and bacteria. The only way to ensure water is safe to drink is to ferment it, allowing the fermentation process to eliminate some of the impurities. So, what you have next to your bread is not just water, but a thick beer with a strong sour taste, which helps minimize the risk of illness. But even with this precaution, the fear of getting sick never disappears. Death from unknown diseases is a constant threat, and illness is as common as hard work. There are no medicines to treat wounds, and antibiotics are just a distant dream. What you have to protect yourself are rudimentary ointments made from honey, resin, and even hippopotamus fat. They help relieve the pain, but they don't actually cure it. And if something more serious happens, like an infection or a high fever, there's not much you can do. Doctors, often priests, recite magic formulas and apply poultices, but more often, they're not. It's luck that decides who survives and who doesn't. Parasites, infections, and dysentery are ever present. Unhealthy working conditions and skin diseases are common among workers who, at the end of a long day, barely recover. There are no toilets, and diseases that spread rapidly through the accumulation of filth in the streets and constant contact with contaminated water are a daily threat. Death from simple causes, like a mosquito bite, can be a fatal sentence because there's no way to effectively combat these diseases. At home, the situation isn't much better. Women who spend their days caring for their children, grinding grain, and preparing what little food they can also face the constant risk of disease. Pregnancy and childbirth, for example, are moments of great danger. Many women give birth at home with little or no medical care, and 1 in 4 children does not survive to adulthood. If the baby survives, a haircut is given, leaving a small tuft on the side, as a sign that the child has been accepted by the gods and will have a chance at eternal life. The struggle for survival here is not limited to physical labor. It also involves a constant battle against disease and a diet that only keeps you going, but not healthy. Everything revolves around the need to stay alive, but even that seems fragile in the face of the forces of nature, disease and fate. Arriving home, exhaustion is mixed with momentary relief. The adobe and reed house, simple but welcoming, offers a temporary refuge from the day's toil. His wife, still young, cares for the children while she tries to ensure everyone in the house is fed. Love here is not a luxury or a choice. It is a necessity for survival, for keeping the flame of hope alive. Marriage in ancient Egypt is not based solely on affection, but on a pact of survival. By age 14 or 15, many young people are already married, as time to start a family is scarce and the need for unity to face adversity is imperative. What unites couples, more than romance, is the need to secure a future for their children, a future that in many cases seems uncertain. In childhood, children know their place very well. They play with small clay figurines and jump on stretched goat skins. But soon they begin to learn that work, the land and the Nile, with all its unpredictability, are their only certainties. By age 7, boys already accompany their parents in the fields, while girls stay home learning to grind grain or tend the fire. Life here is not about dreams or desires, but about ensuring the cycle of life continues, even if it means submitting to a harsh and often cruel fate. But as much as life is marked by hard work and daily struggle, it is also permeated by the presence of the gods and constant reflection on the afterlife. For the average Egyptian, death is not the end, but the beginning of another journey. The fear lies not in death itself, but in not being accepted by the gods in the afterlife. This is why, even amidst chaos and scarcity, there is an obsession with adhering to the laws of Ma'at, order, truth and balance. For only then, according to Egyptian belief, can one's soul be guided to the afterlife. It is not gold or riches that guarantee a good journey after death, but righteous conduct during life. A pure soul is measured in the hall of truth, where its heart will be weighed against a feather. If the heart's weight is greater than the feather of truth, it will be devoured by Amite, the devourer of souls. This judgment of the gods is not just a matter of religion, but a vital necessity. Your life is not only a reflection of the choices you make, but also of how your actions can guarantee a future in eternity. You live not only for yourself, but for future generations, for the gods, and for the collective. Death is not only personal, but a reflection of the collective destiny of your people. Children are taught from an early age that for their family and soul to continue on the path of truth and justice, they must honor the gods and their ancestors. Every act, from the way you work to how you deal with death, is a step toward eternal life. When the day ends and the Nile calms, the body's weariness doesn't disappear, but the mind calms with the belief that your daily conduct is being observed. And perhaps, if you live righteously, you will find a place among the gods. So when you look at your children sleeping silently, you see them not only as a continuation of your lineage, but as a guarantee that one day your soul will be welcomed by divine judgment. Life for the common Egyptian is a cycle of work, worship, and survival. But it is also a cycle that promises eternity if fulfilled with righteousness. In ancient Egypt, the gods are not just distant and powerful beings. They are in every corner of your life, observing your actions, your words, and even what you do when no one is looking. The concept of Ma'at, order, truth, and balance, is not just a moral principle, it is the foundation of all life, and without it nothing works. The belief that everything in the universe has its place and time guides every action, and that is what you carry in your heart. This constant awareness that any deviation, no matter how small, can bring the wrath of the gods and with it, destruction. In every step you take, the divine presence makes itself felt. The priests in their ceremonial robes perform rituals in honor of the gods, but in ordinary life, the worker himself feels the pressure of these deities upon him. The god of the sun who rises every morning and sets at night, is the symbol of this constant renewal. But it is the God of death and eternal life who rules the true destiny of each soul. At the end of your life, no matter how much you have worked or suffered, you will be judged. Your soul will be weighed, not by your wealth or deeds, but by your ability to live according to Ma'at. Belief in divine judgment is the greatest guiding force of the Egyptians. At the moment of death, your soul will be taken to the hall of Ma'at, where Anubis, the god of the dead, will weigh your heart against a feather. This feather represents truth, the lightness of a pure life without lies, without corruption, without error. If your heart is pure, you will be accepted, and your soul will travel to the afterlife, where it will live eternally. But if the weight of your heart is greater than the feather, the goddess Amite, the devourer of souls, will wait to swallow your essence, condemning you to a fate of no return, where torment and oblivion are eternal. The fear of failing this judgment never disappears. You live every day with the constant pressure to do the right thing, to not displease the gods, to live with Mate in your mind. Therefore, even the smallest gestures matter. A mistake, no matter how simple it seems, can be the key to a fate you don't want to face. And that's why, even in the fields while working under the relentless sun, or while your family struggles with hunger, you know that every act of justice, every moral decision counts toward your final judgment. It is this belief that gives the Egyptians the strength to bear the weight of life, because for them it's not just about surviving the heat, the exhausting work or the diseases that constantly threaten. What truly matters is ensuring that in the end, when the foreman is no longer there to shout your name, you have fulfilled your spiritual mission, because in the end, the work in the fields, the sweat, the hunger, and even personal losses are but temporary tests. The true goal is to live in such a way that your soul is received by the gods, allowing you to live an eternal life of peace, unburdened by illness, heat, or pain. As night falls, the desert heat subsides a little, and your body, subjected to hours of exertion, finally finds some relief. A clear, starry sky opens before you, and for a brief moment the day's weariness mingles with a sense of stillness. The journey, arduous as it was, has come to an end. But you know that tomorrow will bring the same cycle again. The foremans shout the struggle for bread and the incessant desire to please the gods. But as the Nile murmurs in the background, you reflect with a slight sigh of relief. The work you did today, the obedience to the rules, and the sacrifices you made aren't just about the present. They're actually an investment in the future. Ancient Egypt isn't just a place of work and sweat, but of hope. Hope that one day your soul will be welcomed by the gods, far from the pain and struggle the body knows. You know that by living with Maat, by striving to be just, balanced, and truthful, you're doing your best to ensure your soul goes to eternal peace, where the heat doesn't burn, where the sun doesn't punish, and where work doesn't weigh on your shoulders. Here in the tranquility of the end of the day, while your children sleep and your wife prepares a final gesture of affection, you find a brief moment of peace. It's not complete peace, not a peace of unaffordable luxury, but a peace born of acceptance of the cycle you live. Each day is a struggle, but each night brings with it the hope that by living justly, you will achieve immortality. Thus, Egypt's greatness is not only made up of stone pyramids, the pharaoh's riches, or immortal hieroglyphics. True greatness lies in daily resistance, in the struggle for survival, in the effort to live according to what the gods expect of every human being. And it is this silent strength, these anonymous hands bearing the weight of the world, that truly shape Egypt. Not the glory of a king, but the perseverance of thousands of ordinary souls, all united by a shared destiny, to attain eternal life. So the next time you look at the pyramids, the statues of gods, or the grand temples, remember, all of this was built by those who, like you, spent their days under the sun, eating bread, and braving the desert heat. Those who, without name, without treasure, without glory, gave their lives in a collective effort to make Egypt eternal. And in doing so, they not only left a legacy of stones, but also a lesson that resonates to this day. That true greatness lies not in wealth or power, but in the humility of daily work, in striving for the common good, and in the belief that, in the end, divine justice will prevail. It's hard to imagine what it would have been like to live in ancient Egypt, where each day became a battle against scorching heat, disease, and hunger, where sweat was not just a sign of effort, but of a life dependent on forces beyond one's control. The fear of the foreman, the pressure to please the gods, and the struggle to secure a future for one's family were the only constants. And even with all this, there remained a flame of hope, a belief that if one lived according to Mahatma, one's soul would one day attain eternal peace, free from the torments of earthly life. Looking at ancient Egypt today, we see only the wonders that were built, the pyramids, the temples, the precious artifacts. But what truly built all this was the silent dedication of millions of anonymous people who spent their days under the scorching sun, never dreaming of fame or recognition. For them, the true prize was not gold or power, but the hope that at the end of their lives they would be accepted by the gods, achieving an eternity free from pain and suffering. Now, reflecting on everything these workers experienced and built, we can ask ourselves, could you endure this life? Could you face the harsh reality of ancient Egypt with its extreme conditions and constant struggle for survival? Each morning, with the foreman's cry, the dry bread, and the intense heat, you would be able to continue, always seeking a reward that would only come after death. Today, our lives may be very different, but reflecting on ancient Egypt teaches us something fundamental. Even in the most difficult conditions, even without riches or glory, daily effort, discipline, and belief in something greater than ourselves can lead us to achieve our own goals, our own forms of eternity. For as the Egyptians believed, the true value of life lies not in accumulating material possessions, but in living with purpose, integrity, and faith. So, the next time you look at your daily routine, remember that, like the Egyptians, we all have our own struggles and challenges. But if we can live with balance, truth, and hope, we can also leave our own legacy, not in stone or gold, but in our actions, our character, and the way we face life's obstacles. See you in the next chapter, where together we will continue exploring the stories of the past to understand how they still speak to us today. Until then, may the gods or science be with you. E.M.